Hello and welcome to a special live edition of the Lakers Theory Podcast. I'm Shane Jackson. Joined with me is Austin Case. The reason why it's special is because we didn't even wait for the game to finish. It is halftime of Game 5 of the Lakers-Suns series here on June 1st. The Lakers are down 66-36, and this marks the day that the Lakers season is over and their quest to defend their title is over. They theoretically still have a chance, but this feels like the final dagger and honestly fitting in a lot of ways to a frustrating season, which I will get into. But first, I want to get to Austin's thoughts because he had a lot of angry reactions in the first half and was ready to shut the game off completely, which is the reason why we're here in the first place, because he wasn't going to watch the second half, so there was no reason to watch the second half and record a pod after. So, Austin, tell me how you're feeling right now at halftime of this 30-point deficit.
Well, I was scrolling Lakers Twitter, and the feelings are mutual. Everyone is just like, yeah, I'm not going to watch this slaughter any longer. I just have no idea. Like, it does not make sense. Dudes passing up catch and shoot open shots. They're hesitating to take these shots. Like, it doesn't make sense for them to do this crap, and like it's so frustrating watching them because, like, you know, KCP has one pull-up mid-range jumper, and like, you know, he can hit outside shots. Like, that's his thing. Like, yeah, he's been shitty this entire series, but like, you know, they're gonna fall. Like, shoot. I don't know, man. Honestly, I don't think I've ever seen a game this bad. And like, it could be a 10-point game, and I would be ready to give up. But I mean, this is embarrassing. Like, I mean, there's no excuse for this team to be down 30. Yeah, they don't have AD, but you know, they didn't have AD in Game 4 for a half, and they didn't get, you know, their ass kicked. So, not a lot of high hopes. I'm kind of with you. Like, I feel like this is just kind of a nail in the coffin. Like, you know, they could win Game 6, but you know, I'm not gonna sit here and be like, yeah, we still have a shot, because this Lakers team is not beating, you know, the Clippers. They're not beating the Jazz. They're definitely not beating the Nets. So that's theoretically our path to another championship, and it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, so part of the appeal to this entire podcast really is so that we can get our takes out there and be wrong about it. So even doing this podcast at halftime, we could be wrong about this because they could come back, obviously, which we're not thinking they will. But that's the appeal of this podcast. Let's get out there and say things, and we're probably going to be wrong. But you're right. It seems unlikely that a second championship is coming. And I agree. You kept saying that it doesn't make sense, and that's where I wanted to go with this, because I think in a lot of ways what we saw from the first half was just poetic in a sense to what this entire freaking season was like. It was frustrating from start to probably finish, because everything that could go wrong did seem to go wrong. Everyone came out flat to start the season, and then you had the AD injury, and even when LeBron was superhuman without AD, then you had the LeBron injury, then LeBron had another setback coming back, and then just when the series was looking like the Lakers might take control, AD goes down in Game 4 around halftime of a competitive Game 4 game, but the Lakers had a 2-1 lead, and then this first half really just epitomized the entire season of just how frustrating and annoying this year truly was for the defending champs. And you can make up a lot of excuses all you want. You can go back all the way to the beginning when they said there was a shorter offseason and all that stuff. But, you know, along those lines early in the year, People were talking about how this team is extremely talented and one of the more talented rosters this team's ever had. And it just did not live up to expectations in any facet whatsoever. And honestly, we saw hardly any signs of that throughout the year. I mean, there were glimpses of what this team could be at times, but more often than not, it was underwhelming, unexciting, and nothing to be really optimistic about. And we were tricking ourselves into ever thinking it was anything else. And honestly, it's fitting that the first half happened the way it did tonight in the biggest game of the season to date. And everyone played like ass in this game. And, early on, as you mentioned, they were not taking the shots that were wide open. And then they were settling for bad shots. There was hardly any movement. Booker was obviously bonkers hot to start the game, but then the energy got into it. The crowd got into it. The energy was there. And that's what you didn't want to happen in this environment when the Suns knew that they had a chance to, basically bury the defending champs tonight in their home court. So basically it was a disastrous night in the first half because, again, the game's not even over. But in a lot of ways, I thought this was honestly a fitting way for it to all go down based off the last several months of how the Lakers season has been. And really just a bad time for us to say, hey, let's just start throwing out takes on the Lakers podcast that only like 6 people are going to listen to. But still, it was a bad time to talk about everything because it was always underwhelming. And we were always giving them excuses and reasons for optimism. And the reality is they never lived up to those expectations. And maybe we can trick ourselves again next year.
Yeah. Like the Lakers started this game well. Like, he hit a shot. LeBron hit a couple shots, and I was like, okay, like, this is what you want to see. And it went downhill fast. Like, immediately. I don't know, man. There was a play. Devin Booker drove the lane, and Caruso was just beside him. Like, arms up. And he gets the whistle and just drops the floater in, like, and then later on in the game, like, LeBron drives the lane and gets smacked around by 3 dudes and is just like, there's nothing. And like, honestly, that has been going on this entire series. Like, even the games they win, like, it's just little things like that. Like, LeBron and AD take I guess they take extra beatings because they're LeBron and Anthony Davis, and I don't know, like, that adds up. Obviously nobody's hitting shots, and it comes down to that, like, dudes aren't hitting shots, they're not even taking shots. So if that's the case, it's just a disaster from the get-go. But like, we definitely made excuses for this team all year. And I don't think once they lived up to expectations that we set for ourselves. So it's just disappointing. And like, we will probably see a lot of turnover this offseason, which doesn't help them at all. I could see a handful of key guys coming back. I know I saw right before this game that the Lakers are confident that Caruso will stick around.
Yeah.
I saw that they want Andre Drummond to be kind of a long-term deal with them, which I'm not against that. Like, he's had some bad moments in this series, but I don't think he's been terrible. Honestly, if Drummond did stick around and he spent his offseason working with LeBron and Anthony Davis, like, he could be a completely different basketball player on the defensive end next year. Obviously that's a tall ask, but it's just kind of something that I was thinking about when I saw that the Lakers wanted to make him kind of a long-term solution. But there's I guess theoretically the season's not over, but it does feel that way. And so it has me thinking off-season moves and just some things that they might do. Like they do have the 22nd pick in the draft, so that's an asset that they can, keep and add someone to this team, or they can look to move it to bring in like Bradley Beal or somebody. I don't know, just throwing names out.
I admire your ability to quickly just get into off-season mode and let's figure out how to make the team better. No, going back to tonight, I mean, right now the game's still happening. The third quarter just started, and Suns scored again. In case you wanted to know, so the part about the Lakers that was always kind of like the reason, I guess, for maybe more optimism is the fact that they were number one in net defensive rating or whatever, with or without AD, basically, right? But the Suns posted the 34 points in the first quarter, the 32 points in the second quarter. So less than ideal to hang your hat there on the defensive end. And then counter that with the fact the Lakers scored 10 points total in the second quarter when the game just got completely away from them. I think it was someone tweeted out that their lowest points scored in a playoff game in a quarter was 8 points. So not even the lowest yet. But it was pretty close, dangerously close. And I don't know. I'm not watching the game anymore. I would be surprised if LeBron and any key players are out there for the Lakers. There's no reason to play them. Just rest them up and hope for better in Game 6. It's a tall task to have to rally in here. And maybe if AD can play Game 6, you can trick yourself into thinking the Lakers have hope. And honestly, I might do that to an extent, especially if they did, win Game 6. Then you were talking about a Game 7, right? But this tonight in particular just feels like kind of like, as you said, the nail in the coffin. Like this feels like a long time coming. Like someone is finally putting us down. We've just been living on our last life here, and they're mercifully putting us down. And I'm happy about it. I think a little bit. Like I've been frustrated watching this game all night, and then part of me right before we got on was like, I'm kind of relieved to not have to talk about just how frustrating this team has been throughout the year. Again, sorry, go.
Even in the wins, we were like, this was frustrating. Like even when they won basketball games, we were like, this kind of sucked. Like they like a bunch of their wins were just ugly. Yeah, is probably the best way to put it. But yeah, it was not a great season. Somehow they had the best defense in the league. I watched a lot of their basketball games, and I have no idea how they accomplished that. But okay, So
I guess we can turn. So the Lakers, I thought Game 2 was going to be like the game that swung this series a little bit. Those last few minutes of Game 2 in particular. It was after that shot clock violation. I remember we talked about it after Game 2, and their defense just locked everything down. AD moved to the 5, and it really felt like the Lakers took control of things. Then they came back in Game 3 and just kind of embarrassed the Suns in Game 3. And it just felt like, when we looked back at the series, those last few minutes of Game 2 were going to be the thing that decided the series, right? Because it could easily have gone the Suns' way, and they would be up 2-0. Then the AD injury happened at halftime, and who knows how Game 4 would have worked out with or without AD. But I feel like that obviously changed things dramatically in the Suns' favor. I guess going into tonight, what were your expectations without AD, and did you think that the Lakers had a chance at this series? Because honestly, like I didn't. I was telling people that the Lakers are dead before this game even started. So
yeah, like I didn't like their chances of winning this game, and I kept seeing that like there was a chance AD could play, and I wasn't for that, just because this isn't a series clinching game, so there's a win here could help a lot, but like it's not worth losing him for the potentially the entire playoffs for one game.
Yeah.
And so that was my thought. I'm like, come out here, try to win this game, roll into Game 6, and AD will be that much closer. Maybe he plays game 6. I don't know where he's at. So him almost playing today kind of, it makes you feel better about his chances in game 6. But like, I don't know, man. It's tough. Like, yeah, I don't know. I wasn't expecting a lot from this game. I didn't expect the outcome that is currently happening at all. But I didn't think they would win this game, but I thought they would at least fight.
Yeah. Even if AD's back, I mean, what version of AD you're getting is the key. Like, I don't think before he looked anything spectacular. Right? He was laboring through something as well before the groin injury. So, I guess, I mean, there's no reason to go on and on with this podcast. So let's wrap it up here with just quick, like how we think game 6 and possibly game 7 are going to go. It sounds like neither of us are very hopeful anymore about the Lakers. I'm only trying to get us out here saying things on the record right now because you and I will not be doing a podcast after game 6. We'll be in Vegas. So there is no way to record a show, or at least not a show that anybody would want to watch in that time. So we'll say something now, and then probably when the Lakers lose, we will have a season wrap up at some point, and then talk about off season, which Austin was already trying to get into. So Austin, just give me what your predictions are for these last 2 games before we head out of here.
If we have AD for game 6 and game 7, I think there's a chance that we could take this series. Like I mean, you just have to. Yeah, there's AD's a difference maker on this team, so. But a banged up AD trying to play through injuries, or no AD at all, and there's just no chance. No chance at all.
Yeah, I tricked myself right before the playoffs started. I thought, hey, everything was kind of falling into place for the Lakers. Everybody was getting healthy at the right time. I was like, okay, well, the Lakers are going to be winning, or win the title, right? And I was wrong. They were not as healthy as I expected. I'm not going to be naive again. I think game 6, the Suns put us down for good. And it doesn't matter because we'll be in Vegas. Who cares at that point? So, that'll be it for this podcast. The latest podcast of Lakers Theory, the one that was live at halftime. Right now, the Suns lead 76-42 with 8:17 left in the third quarter. And I'm sure the game is over by the time you are listening to this or watching this, wherever you get your podcast. We'll be back at some point, probably after this series, and maybe previewing the next series if the Lakers somehow pull it off. If not, we'll get into the offseason talk at some point and have podcasts every now and then. He's Austin Case. I'm Shane Jackson. Thank you so much for listening to a very sad version of the Lakers Theory podcast, and we'll see you next time, Lakers fans.